show. I'm the architect, baby. Watch it grow.
Okay. uh, Sorry, I had some issues with the audio. Sometimes that happens. Okay, good afternoon. So, my name is Alejandro Madrigal. Today I will be presenting and what I hope it's an interesting session. Sorry, I have something going on here with the audio. Sometimes that happens. Okay, good afternoon. So, my name. Yeah, sometimes it gets caught up in a weird loop. Sorry. Okay, so as I was saying, today I'm going to do just a small presentation regarding uh, how to work with contributed SDCs. Um, Basically, this is of course Drupal development. I tend to showcase Drupal related stuff. Um, Talking a little bit about single directory components, it's been a while since they got released. Basically, single directory components is a way for you to generate reusable pieces of code that includes JavaScript, CSS, and HTML, and in a way integrate them with different parts of the Drupal templating system. For this particular session, we are going to take a look at actually three different repositories. So, if you give me a second, I'm going to be adding them in the chat. Okay. So this is the one that I have been using for most of my work recently. In particular, this one has a separate branch that is called SDC test, shareable SDC test. So if you clone this repository and if you check out this branch, you're going to have the same environment that I am going to use to showcase how to create single directory components that are shareable. The other one is for one component, for one sample SDC. It's pretty straightforward. It just has the files that belong to a single directory component, and this is a simple card using Tailwind. So if you take a look, basically I just grab the same card that is shown on the Tailwind site, and basically convert it to a single directory component by adding some placeholders where I would have, like, for instance, a media entity coming from Drupal, or I would have some properties or slots, right? So pretty straightforward. We have some CSS files. If you have used the UI patterns module, you might be familiar with stories or demos. So for the SDC style guide, which is a separate module that I built, I also have what is called a demo. On the UI patterns is called a story. Uh, so this is one of those modules. This other repository that I'm going to include, so I'm going to paste this in the chat. The second repository here, it's called details, and this is actually a single directory component built by Monette here. She built this, and basically what I did, just grabbed it and gave her credit. The whole idea was for me to just add a component that I had no control over, that I just copied from somewhere. It was nice to see that she's using UI patterns, and because basically I just grabbed that story that she had built there and copied it as a demo for the SDC style guide. Okay, so uh, here's the long-term plan or idea. Let's say that me being a Drupal developer, I would like to create like a library of components, but not like bundle all the components together. I want to create like independent components that I can just bring to my projects whenever I need them, because I might have some projects that don't require all components, or little by little I would be requiring all of them. So one of the things that is normally mentioned in the community is that if you want to share your SDCs, then you have to create a module or a theme. Uh, that kind of makes sense, but the problem, quote unquote, is that I might not want to bring like a full theme just for that. I know that, so single directory components are only loaded when they are included or embedded in a page. So technically, even if you include a lot of CSS and JS, it is not going to be embedded, right? Because it will only be embedded on demand. I am so my train of thought is that the more code that I have in a project, it could be more complicated for people to understand or to follow along the lines. So if I can reduce the amount of code that my project has, then that's even better, right? Another problem that I see is that, for instance, if someone builds a component and they want to share that, or if I build a component and I want to share it, and then someone else decides that they want to use both of our components, it doesn't make sense to include two themes, right? Or alternatively, the person will have to create a theme, and then after creating the theme, thank you, Monet. So after creating the theme, that person should grab the code from one of the themes for the single directory component, add it on its theme, on his own theme, and then grab the other component from the other theme and add it on his theme. So that is like a manual step. And then the secondary problem is that they will have to keep track of those updates manually. Like if in the future that theme gets updated, then he needs to go and grab the new code. So that just becomes like a management hell, I would say. And imagine if you have like 4 or 5 different components from different people that you want to use. Does it make sense that you would have that scenario where you want to use components from different people? I don't know, but it could be a possibility. So here is the problem. Right now, doing so requires you to create a module or a theme. If you want to have one single component, then you have to create one single module. So if you have 20 components and some people want to like use 12 of them, then they will have to download all 12 modules. That's annoying. In the way that I see it, in my opinion, that's annoying. Or have themes, or like include the whole thing on your project. Again, I'm trying to reduce the amount of things that are required. So as you can see, these repositories, they have just a basic. It says that it's not watchable. Why not? Monet, well, if you're here, Monet, are you having some kind of issue watching this? I know that there was like a problem at the start because of that audio loop that got cut in, but I think that should have been corrected by now. Hmm. Let me see. Okay. Every, I guess that maybe it's a time thing. Okay. Okay. So I was saying, uh, the components are here. The only difference to a standard single directory component that you're going to have, and this is an additional requirement, is that you're going to include, or you will need to include a composer.json file. Now, my long-term plan for this, and hopefully this is something that the community thinks makes sense, is that I want to manage this through Composer, because to me it makes sense that if I want to include this component, then I should be able the same way that I include a module, a theme, or a recipe, and that is just by using Composer. So on the Composer JSON, you would describe your package, and then the important thing is for this to be identified as type Drupal component. This is the first thing, just to make it something that can be included in your project. Then for your Composer JSON file, you're going to have a secondary requirement, which is to install this Composer Installers Extender Composer plugin. What this allows to do is to create additional install types. So by default, Drupal component is not something that is managed by Drupal. That's something that I came up with based on the conversations that we had on the Slack channel. So we're going to call it Drupal component, and then with this Composer Installers Extender, what this basically allows me to do is in the Composer JSON file define under the installer section an installer path that is going to be mapping to web components contrib for all the items that are defined as Drupal component. Okay, so doing this, the next thing that I need to do is include custom repositories. Now, because this right now, like there's no type in Drupal to like contrib this, you have to create your own repositories. So this is the annoying part. Like ideally, the long-term goal is that the same way that you search for modules or themes using the project browser in Drupal, hopefully one day in the future you can also use the project browser to search for single directory components, and then you don't have to do this. But in the meantime, this is the best that I could come up with. So you add your repositories here, basically the name of the project, type VCS because it's version control system, and then the URL to GitHub, GitLab, or Bitbucket. The next step is basically just do a composer require, because this right now don't have tags. I'm using dev main, so that means that for the time being you have to change your minimum stability to def. Of course, if you create like a stable tag and all of that, you can have that work similar to your standard workflow using beta or just production as part of minimum stability. But again, this is a proof of concept. The whole idea was just to make sure that indeed there was a way to have your single directory components be shareable among your projects, or even with the rest of the community. Okay, so you add your repositories here. You make sure that those repositories have a Composer JSON file that maps them as type Drupal component, and then you include the Composer Installers Extender, you allow it to execute, and then you define the mapping to where they should end up within your project. Okay. Now that is just all the setup required for them to be like used, available to different people. The last piece of the puzzle to get all of this working is the shareable SDC module. So this is something that I released Tuesday, I think, Monday. I released this on Monday. Okay, to provide some additional context. A long time ago, I built this module, the single directory components style guide. Basically, this module gives you a way to see all your single directory components on Drupal. Think some kind of storybook, but more bare bones. You don't have to install any other libraries. Like with Storybook, you need to set up Node.js, React, and like the whole compilation stuff. Previously, like if you were using Pattern Lab, that was another way to build like all this style guide, or a way for you to browse your components. So I kind of did all of that inside Drupal as a contributed module. Now, When I worked on this module, I learned a lot about how single directory components were built. I had to go through the code, understand how it was finding the single directory components, because basically I need to use the component. This basically has a class that is called the component plugin manager. And I had to use the component plugin manager to identify all the single directory components, figure out if they were coming from a theme or a module, and then also add the capability to include demos as part of the single directory components. So I already had some experience navigating through that code base, which made it somewhat easier for me to figure out what I had to do to build the single directory component, the shareable single directory components module. Now, if we take a look at the code for this module, let's do it in the IDE. So, so if I go to modules, contrib, shareable SDC, share, ¿qué se me hizo? What? ¿Qué se me hizo? Sorry. Okay. Basically, so okay, the component plugin manager is a Drupal service, and because it's a Drupal service, that means that I can use dependency injection, right, to load it. Now, it also means that I can replace the class if that I can replace the class if the class that it's using it's not doing it for me. So what I did is that I created my own component plugin manager class. Now, it follows the same setup or yeah, the same setup as the original class. The only thing is that it inherits from it. Now, inheritance allows me to reuse most of the code base whenever possible. And my original plan was to basically just override some protected methods and have it figure out like where to look for components that were on like a root folder called components. I almost got there. The main problem was that some of the functions, like some of the method that the class uses, are private, and because they are private, that means that they are not usable within a subclass of that class. So basically, I had to take a look at the code for the component plugin manager, and then some of the methods I was able to override. Some of the other methods, like get the scan directories, I had to rebuild in, which basically meant that I had to like copy the code and just add a few things here and there for the things that I needed. So this is going to be like an almost exact copy of the parent method, but I'm adding this to identify that this is coming from a source folder called components. Now, when you install single directory components this way, under your project root, you're going to have components, and then you're going to have contrib components. And these are the components that are coming from those repositories, right? So, okay, that's great. Once I enable the module, then it's going to identify that these components are available here. Now, how do I test them? The usual problem when testing single directory components is that you have to actually include them as part of a template, or embed them as part of a template. Like for instance, if I'm creating a node template and I want to use my component, I have to embed it manually. This is kind of problematic when like you have a team of developers and some developers are not really that experienced with Drupal. And let's think about just basic HTML and CSS, right? So you give them Twig, that's just a little bit like a small layer of complication. But if you have to like tell them that you have to build this theme, it needs to have all of this, then it becomes more problematic for some developers. So where was I going with this idea? Yeah, so the single directory component is just like this small piece that they have to write, and they don't have to worry about getting like a module team, like understanding how a node template works to embed it or include it. They just have to work on that. But how do they test them? Like how would they test a single directory component if they don't like do all that Drupal stuff? Now, here is where the SDC style guide comes in. So I was playing around with this for a while, a few minutes ago, so that's why you were seeing that screen. But assuming that you're an admin, because you have to set a permission for this. Okay, sorry, parentheses. This is running on top of DDEF, so if you clone the project and you go to a shareable SDC test branch, you can do DDEF start, DDEF composer install. There's also a database backup here that you can like DDEF db import and that file, and then you should have the same environment that I have here. Okay, so now with that set, once I have this installed, or if you're starting from scratch, you need to enable the SDC Styleguide and the SDC shareable modules. But once that is set, you can go to /Styleguide and then Explorer. And over here, you're going to see the SDC Styleguide working. Basically, the module goes through all the components. And in this case, because I'm replacing the component plugin manager, it is also going to go through the components that live within the components folder. So in this case, if we take a look at the components that are built, let's take a look first at the one that Monet built. So the test component.json, here is all the information. It has a description. It is grouped into atoms and it's marked as experimental. It has a link to her GitHub project, and then it defines the types, the properties for this SDC, and what it has over here, and then the slots, right? Then you can take a look at the twig file over here, and basically it's like a details component that you click it and then it displays the content. Okay, now this is not going to look nice because this theme is not properly set. I'm just using it for testing purposes. But if you click the atom for details, you're going to have this. Ignore this for the time being because this is something that I need to fix in the SDC Styleguide module. But you're going to see that it has a form. It just doesn't look nice because this theme is pretty basic. But actually, you know what? Who cares? Okay, let me do something first. Because maybe doing this is going to at least make it look better with Claro. Sorry, appearance. Let me change the theme to Claro. Hey, wait. Sorry. I'm just excited about this. Olivero. So it's Olivero for Drupal CMS. So install this and set as default. There you go. To default. Okay, let's go back to the style guide. Okay, here. This is coming from somewhere else. Wait, this is link generator. He's using a link. I think this might be coming from an Olivero single directory component. Okay, let me change to a different theme. I should have tested this before. Okay, no worries, things happen. Okay, let's make it use Claro instead and see how it behaves. Okay, I will need to run additional tests because this only seems to be working with the tester theme that I was using. I don't know why. Okay, apologies for that. I will make sure that this gets corrected later on after I finish the presentation. Wait, something broke extremely bad here. What? There's nothing. Check something quickly. So the sample car is working fine. Disclosure from the style guide. Disclosure in theory just takes care of. Okay, this is just getting distracting. I'll fix it later, don't worry. Again, this is a proof of concept. Is it a slot issue on the details? I'm not sure because technically I haven't changed the demo, so the demo should be still the same that you were seeing before. Let's take a look at the detail story. component atoms details. So here's the details that you had built. That's fine. It's not an issue with the story. It's difficult to see the top of your white script in YouTube. Hard to tell what it is. Interesting. Okay. Uh, Most likely, the problem is related to some properties that the style guide requires to display some of the information. That has happened before, and I actually have a pending fix that I need to push later. This is a little bit distracting, so I'm going to momentarily disable login. Again, this is... Oh, so I have it on the... Here, most likely. Yes, here. It like that particular error could be related to just something with components, but okay. I won't be able to show the Explorer in the meantime because of that error that I was getting. And I wonder if that's coming from Olivero. I think it's yeah, I think it has to be Olivero. Let me uninstall it. And then go back to Explorer. Yeah, it's the Olivero theme. So again, the module goes through everything that's available, and it's not liking something from the Olivero for the Drupal CMS theme. And if I'm not mistaken, it has like a car component or like a teaser component. And basically that teaser component is using like a Drupal class to render something, which is a link, and that is causing this particular issue. So if I go to... Where is it? Where is the Olivero one? Drupal CMS Olivero components. Yeah, it's coming from here somewhere. So something over here should be using a link or a complex class, and that complex class is throwing what the style guide is doing. This basically means that I need to could be this something around this. I will need to run tests, but I'm glad that I was able to figure out that it was coming from Oliver and not my code. Ooh. Okay, let me check quickly. So that's Olivero CMS, and then we have the standard Olivero. Okay, let me just test with standard Olivero. Okay, now this one works better. So if I take a look at the details atom, okay, awesome. This works better. Okay, so thank you, Monet. Okay, so this is Monet's component. The SDC style guide, what it does is that it goes through the component definition file, and if you click the actual link for the component, you get a form. With this form, basically you can go through, you can fill the information to generate a demo. Okay, so let's take a quick look at what Monet did here. So we have properties, we have a theme, and this theme has the title theme, it is a string, it has this description, and then it's an enumeration. So enumerations in the SDC style guide get displayed as a select box. Okay, so I can choose an option from here, and then she has some slots. Slots in Drupal are tweak blocks, and basically I can include whatever I want. So I can submit this, and this generates the demo here. Okay, now what I would say is one nice feature of the SDC style guide is that I can export this demo file. I don't have to write it myself. So let's say I use theme default, and this is the summary text. Please click me. Oh. So I can submit this, I can see the demo here running, and then I can export this. See? So I can have this YAML file, follow this instruction over here. So I'm going to do as it says. So on, and again, because this is a contrib component, it might not make sense to generate the demo here. But again, if you're building components to share with people, then you can build the demos. So I have the live example here. I copy this information. I paste it. Let me change this because something happened recently in PHP Storm, and the usual option for me was file, but now it's like a PHP file, and then it just messes the whole thing for me. Live example. Okay, so now that I have this, now take a look at this. So if I check the Explorer again, now I have a second demo here. So again, the style guide allows me to create demos and see how they behave in an isolated format. You can see from here that this is what it did. Okay, another nice thing about the SDC style guide is that it has accessibility checks. So you have this option over here, and this is only live in the dev version. I need to launch a new release for this. But on the live version, you get accessibility checks. It's using a library called XJS, which basically runs this for me, and then I just can like render this report on a single directory component. But yeah, so this is the SDC style guide. Now, that was for the card that Monet did. As you can see, it's quite straightforward. Like oversimplifying it, it has some CSS that I can later customize to use some CSS variables. This is something that needs to be discussed later on when you decide to share your single directory components. How are you going to have them be customizable by people? One thing, for instance, here is that this is going to apply to all details. So if you have another class on your CSS that also use details, and you're going to have these conflicts, and then depending on how CSS selectors apply, they might have more weight than the weight on your component. This is a standard discussion, I would say, in any front-end project, how you're going to ensure that like the styles don't bleed into other styles. And this is going to be a discussion when you share your single directory components. You have to come up with strategies. So on her end, basically she has some properties that belong to the component, and then she has some global variables that can be defined at a theme level. Now, this means that there is some documentation that needs to be set up to tell people or developers that they need to follow that approach. Alternatively, I would say that a way to document this would be to have like a website like, these are my single directory components for Drupal, and then you can include them the following way, and then like people can create forks and pull requests for those repositories. It might be a good idea for the base class to be more specific, like .skeleton country details or something. That's one option. Again, the whole idea for this is to not limit or tell people what to do, just to like give them warnings of what they need to take into consideration, but give them enough freedom to do like whatever they want to do. Another alternative, for instance, would be to use CSS layers, because I know that if I use a layer file, then whatever people do on an anonymous layer is going to always override what my layer has. Now the problem with that is that they might have some styles that could affect how this works. Like for instance, with a card, it might be complicated to like really affect how it works. But let's say that you have a carousel or something like that, where position absolute, position relative, position static could be like thrown in between, like all the stuff regarding the 3D seed index and all of that. That's where it could get troublesome. But again, the whole idea is you have to think really hard how you want to share these components with the community in a way that they can like work almost in any scenario. But again, that is a problem that already happens with libraries. Like I have used old carousel, owl carousel, or the slick.js slider, and I have some cases where like a developer did like a tag with an important, and then it messed some of the styles for the carousel. So that could happen even if you like put good thought into it. That could always end up happening, right? So again, this is a standard problem. I think that there's like really no perfect solution for it. That's something that you just have to take into consideration and document it so that people can work around that. Oh no, components should have position relative on the parent to ensure the position absolute within them. I agree. That might not happen in all cases, but I do agree. Okay, so again, this is a great example of how you could build a single directory component that could be shared with the community, and then you can have like another great thing about this is that you are not limited. Like for the shareable SDCs, you are not limited to just have like your contriv and your let's say custom component. You can also have like an atomic way of building single directory components. So I over here have like the atomic button grid, and as long as it's available, I can create like multiple buttons. So a button, let's say, has something like this. I'm a button. I can export the demo, but then I can have a button grid that just includes a bunch of buttons, right? So with the style guide, I can see an atomic way of building your style guide. But with the shareable components, I can have like a different set of folders to match any kind of design system that my project needs. So on some projects I might use atomic design. On some other projects I might go super simple with just components thrown there, and it should still work. I can have a contrib things that I just pick one by one, or eventually I could even have like a contrib repository of components, like let's say Tailwind components that I have for my project, or the USWDS, the United States Web Design System. I could have something like that that can be shared across many projects, right? There's another discussion that you might also have in your projects regarding whether you're going to be using just like standard CSS, if you're going to use post CSS. Uh, with this, for instance, with this project over here, and this is the next thing that I'm going to showcase, uh, I'm using post CSS here in the custom tester theme, and basically what this does is it just includes Tailwind and then whatever is under components and templates. But then I also made sure that I would include anything that is under contrib, and I can also include anything that is under custom. And basically that means, for instance, that if I have a discard custom over here. Actually this happened with the sample card. So the sample card is using Tailwind. You can see from the styles over here. If I take a look at the sample card that was built before, so the image card, then I have all of this. Now, some of the stuff from Olivero might be affecting it. Let me see if it's compiling the Tailwind stuff. It might not be compiling Tailwind, so that could be the problem. Let me do this and then try clearing cache. Sample card, listo. Okay, so another thing that the SDC style guide has is that you have like a dedicated URL for your single directory components to test them for demos. So I can always like make changes to this, save them, and then I can like just refresh and see them. Eventually, if I like added hold reload every time that I make a change, it will refresh the browser window, and that would work a lot faster, like especially if you have like a second monitor. Let me see what's going on here. So I see it's compiling, but it's just not adding those classes. Components contrib. Maybe this is the problem. Okay. Maybe I just added one more level. That was what required. Nope, that's not the case. So under contrib, I have sample card. Why is it not finding it? I'm pretty sure that this was working when I originally did my first test. Okay, let's try again. Okay, I failed at having it work with Tailwind. Um, Too bad. But I mean, it is what it is. Technically, this should be getting the classes here, and this should be getting loaded. Actually, sorry, I sometimes just can't let things go if I know that they should work. So this is compiling here. So I need to find this class. It's there. So it's just the background should be BG white here, and it's also there. So could be a Firefox thing. What the? Okay, so this is set here. No aggregation, no caching. Why is it not working? So the weird thing is that is indeed compiling this. What namespace is used to embed a shareable component in a template? Maybe the path is incorrect, one or two lines. So, I mean, I don't think it's the path because you can see from here that the compile asset has it. So BG white is a class that is being included. The color white is what I don't see working, but if I take a look at the card here, I'm not seeing the CSS file. Of course, it's not working because I'm not using my theme, I'm using Olivero. So I was using Olivero to showcase how the forms look like because with Olivero they look nice. But of course, because the SDC style guide depends on the active thing, it's not going to work. So I need to change the theme again to use my custom theme so that it properly compiles and loads the right style sheet. That was the problem. Okay, let's go back and change to the tester theme. Uh, Set as default. Okay, now you can see the rest of the classes. That was the issue. Okay, so uh, again, the more things that I remove from here, like if I remove this p file, let's say that I remove the VG white, this gets recompiled, then I can refresh, and then I don't have the background. Okay, so it works with Tailwind. That's great. Okay, so yeah, again, this one works with Tailwind. I just use Tailwind classes. I know that there are a lot of developers that really like to use Tailwind. So you can have like something that on your development machine as a developer just runs Tailwind on the back, right? They can like ensure that the component works and then just like commit it to a GitHub repository, like share it with people, and then people can reuse it as long as they add their composer information. They can add it. And basically that's it. I mean, there's really not much to share regarding the shareable module, the shareable SDC module, because it just does what it needs to do, which is to be able to like expose an additional components folder at the root level of your Drupal project. So components, and then you can have whatever folder structure that you want over there, and components should load. Like for instance, over here, I created these card customs that you can these custom cards that you can see here. So if I like just fill the information, then I can have like this, and then I can have the custom card render. And yeah, basically that's it. Of course, there are more things that you could do with the SDC style guide. For instance, over here, I can have this section to explain how colors should work, how text should behave under different scenarios, and then I can like make this style guide more complex, so that developers and like designers and then the stakeholders can all take a look at how the things is going to look like. What is the namespace used to embed a component? Okay, the namespace is components. So let's test this on a Drupal node. Okay, this node is broken, and the node might be broken because I deleted something that I need. Just give me a second and I'll showcase that. Yeah, so card root, I deleted card root, so that's why it's failing. But if I go to the tester team, so you can see it here. If I refresh this, I need card root. Where's card root being used? Here. Contrib one, yeah, because I deleted the contrib examples that I worked before. So let me just delete this as well. There you go. So this is just a note. The node has a paragraph template, and the paragraph is just a text template, and like this has the hard-coded components as part of it. So you can see that the namespace is just components, and their color custom components color custom. Now this does raise an valid point, and it was Pierre, I believe, the one that shared it. Is how does it know that it needs to load from component for whatever component card under library 1 to whatever component card from library 2? That is why single directory components like that can be shared makes sense only if you identify which ones you want to load, because technically like again, multiple scenarios, this is something that requires more evaluation, but I could say that for the time being, you should include just one component. And if you're going to be using like a library of components, like a project that includes many components, then you need to basically avoid having another component custom or whatever that is called card. Now if this is part of a module or a theme, then you're not going to run into that problem. But if you like are using shareable components, then you might run into that. But that means that you need to watch out for that and be ensuring that the features that you're using are not going to collide in that way, because that could cause some weird scenarios. And yeah, so you can include components from here, or you can include them through code. This is something that the SDC style guide already does. So here, so here's where the things are grouped. I get the file here, and no, sorry, this wasn't the controller. So no, hold on. You can see that. Where is it? Here. So the component is being embedded using the render array for components, and then you have the type component, the component name, and then you can pass the props and slots. You can also do it from a PHP using a render array. And basically that's it. You have your single directory components that can be shared. Again, the process is quite straightforward. You generate the composer folder. Hijo mío, por favor. You generate your composer folder. You generate your component folder, add a component.json file, and then add the rest of your files. Include the composer installers extension, and then map the corresponding type to the folder, and that should be it. Basically that's it. I don't know if anyone has a question, a comment. This is also for the SDC style guide besides the shareable components, so anything is valid. Could you add the SDC author name in the namespace somehow? Could I? Could I? I mean, I guess there could be a way for that to work, but then my question is, my question Agarzola would be, is there an actual scenario where you will have a card from one vendor and then a card for a different vendor and use both? Like, do you see that happening? I find it that to be weird. Like, why would I have two different cards for two different people? Creo que esto tiene un delay. 'Cause I'm not sure how long. Really, that's a valid scenario. Okay. I mean, I that would require some more research on my end. So how would this work? And again, you can always explore this. Uh, because I share this as a contrib module, so you can always take a look at the code and see if you can get something working. And like, you could log an issue, and if you have time, work on it. I could also try to spend some more time later on to try to figure it out. But so here's how it works. Basically, when I find a definition, I need to add a provider. So the problem with this is that I would somehow need to include some more information to a single directory component. Two different carousels. Okay, so here is where I create the provider definition. I guess one way to do it would be to add some more information to a single directory component, because technically when I'm going through, something that I discovered is that if you add wait if you add more information to your component, yeah, like my components, technically, ah shareable namespace. So if I do something like this, and if I take a look at the definition, so this is for details, but this is happening on the sample card. Let me add it to details as well. See, so something that happens is that any information that I add to my SDC is always going to end up in the definition. Technically, what this means is that I could have a provider be uh, okay. So technically, I should be able to like match these two, like at the provider. I don't know how it would work. I would definitely need to run several tests, but like I could, for instance, try to map this and just append, like, change this here. And again, I don't know if this is going to work. Maybe it does. So components dash your namespace, which this means that you need to like clean up the namespace to avoid any kind of issues there. Uh, so definition shareable namespace. So I could do this. And again, I have not validated this. I don't know if it's going to work. Okay, but then this is going to break the SDC style guide, maybe. Okay, fingers crossed that this is going to work for you guys because I don't know. Uh, Components. Okay. So, don't get too happy because this is a different test. Style guide explorer, and we did this for the details. So, component detail story. Aha. So, components details does not exist because this should be components. YC. It's not defined. Wait, how did I call the namespace? Yeah, MIC. Uh, maybe I need to add it to both. Let's remove this. Clear cache. So the problem right now is that I think I know what the problem is. Wait. So definition ID, yeah, this is what's happening here. So definition here, but wait. So this might not be the right place to add it. Okay, let's try it. I'm so what I'm doing right now is just vibe coding without the AI and just doing it hard coded to see if it works. If it works hard coded, then I can come up with some ideas to get it not be hard coded. Yeah, it got lost. Okay, let me revert the code to how it was before. I think there's another section where I check is the price. There it is. Okay, that might be why it's failing as well because I also need to check if the provider is valid. So technically speaking, I would need to iterate all over the components to find namespaces to ensure that it's a valid namespace. So let me just change this here and add this and then clear. Once I do this, they should show up here. See? Now they show up. So if I click this, components details, it's not loading from the right place. It passed, but it's not working. Yeah, I basically this means that I just need to spend some more time trying to find it. It's like see if that could somehow work. Like technically it should. I just need to find the right way to do it. Definition ID. Or write the plugin ID to use the components namespace. This is the components NYC. And this is the problem because I did this the other way around. Duh. Okay, let's try again. So if I go back here, it should still show up. If I open the it's not liking it. Component directory. To click cache. Okay, so this part is fine because it knows that it needs to find it there. Basically just builds the library here. So is this part actually so the extension type is components NYC. Ah, maybe no. That the ID is okay as well. Components NYC sample card. Provide the components NYC. Like technically from this should work, but it's not working. I don't know why. Let me try something different. Okay, let this one go through, and then on the text component that I have here, let me remove this, and technically if I do this sample card, and the sample card requires this content. Mm. Yeah. So basically this means that I need to an underscore. Could it be an underscore? I mean, it doesn't hurt to try. So change it here and then change it here as well. No, that was not it. Hmm. Okay, it might, for the time being, without going into like more details, and just basically trial and error until I get this right, might take some more time. Okay, so remember that I'm using a subclass. There might be some other things that the parent class is doing that could affect how this works. Now, could be, I mean, that should not be a case, but it could happen. Like if it is trying to match, no. But then again, it doesn't happen for modules or teams, so that doesn't make sense. Compose return card. Maybe it doesn't like the hyphen. Yeah, it was worth a shot. Uh, I mean, I will be definitely play around with the idea. I think maybe so. Remember that this is also depending on what the parent class does. So if the parent class is doing something as something that it expects, then it's going to fail. For instance, I don't know if this component negotiator could have any side effect on that. So I would need to check what's going on here when it matches that. Is this the one that I had to copy? Process definition. Process definition category. Other definitions. So after all the definitions are altered, get model extension list. Okay. This is a copy of what it does there. Body definitions, scan directories, library paths for schemas, library root. Ah. ¿Pero por qué? So the funny thing is that if I do this and just leave it as components, it works. Now the question is why? Because the sample card has the namespace. So let me remove it from this one. And the question is what happens here? Hmm? The path is fine. The machine name. That's the ID. Because the provider is components NYC. This one is fine. No, I will need to spend some more time trying to figure this one out. It might require some different things for me to check. Well, one of the first things that I would need to do is find how Tweak reads this and changes it to something different. Like why would it work with components if it was not set before? Or maybe could it be that I just got lucky? I don't think that's the case. Components should not be something that is defined as a global namespace, I think. Okay, I'm going to do this test just to check something quickly. Okay, so technically speaking, I created my own components provider. Let's call it CMP. Ah, this is interesting. Did you see that? Why? I mean, that's what I'm thinking. That somehow components is map, but technically the one that takes care of mapping is my class over here. So it's now weird that it's not finding it. I don't think it's happening from the, or could it be this one over here? Oh. Oh, 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 oh. Oof, this makes okay. This makes it more complicated. Okay, so yeah, okay. To explain what's going on. Okay, when the component plugin manager has to find where components are being placed, because they depend on a module or a theme, it identifies the include based on the machine name of where it's being placed. So if it's a module, it uses the module name and matches the component folder. But if it's a theme, it uses the theme name and matches the component folder. Now, because I'm using global components namespace, it seems that it's ignoring the ID of the component and it's just using the folder name instead, like the array key that I set up here. So basically that means that for me to be able to map it, I would need to read the component information and dynamically change the name. Or just add like a bunch of references to kind of the same, like CMP, like I would have to go through each YAML file, get the shareable name if it's available, and then create that as a folder with the corresponding folder to like where to find these particular components. It is doable, but then it requires more time. Okay, so basically that's the idea. When the directories are getting scanned, I need to find a way to alter those. This is so this is not looking pretty, guys, because once I scan the directories, okay, so let's see what's going on with the parent class. So basically, the directories get scanned, then it adds the discovery method for the component suffix. And this is not a problem, like this cache key is global, so that's not a problem. But then it returns this discovery. Now the discovery is being used. Huh? Where are you using the discovery? Is it used by? No, not revealed. Sectors. Get discovery. So they just caches it. But then who uses this? that's not being called. That's it's not being called because I'm overriding it. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Default plugin manager. Get discovery. I mean, this is me not knowing much about this, but other than adding some stuff to the class and decorating it somehow, doesn't seem like. Okay, so I think adding additional namespace is possible, but the problem is when it happens. So when I with the scan directories, I'm just telling it that it should find it there. But okay, but okay. This would okay. I have an idea of how this could work, but it does add some more complications. Or does it? Because technically speaking, so if I know that everything is coming through components, and I have contrib components and custom components, then I could have them have a folder and then use that folder as the ID key here to use. That way, if I create a repository like the ones that you mentioned over here, like Bodyart, yeah, that's a good point, Monet. Is it worth the lines of code? I mean, they mention a particular scenario where they will have two different sliders. So what? Okay, then there's another alternative. What's the easy solution? Have your component have the namespace as part of its name. So like if instead of using my slider, call it like instead of calling it just slider, call it I don't know who mentioned the name. Scott Sawyer's card or Dryer's card, Dries card, Boyard card. That way, like your component has the namespace on it, and then you just need to include the component with the full name. That would be the easier approach to have like repeatable names, but then that becomes a convention. And I think managing the convention is a lot easier because, like right now, adding the code is what is a spectrum? I don't know what a spectrum is. Spectrum. Hmm? The Adobe design system? Okay. Okay, perfect. Then yes, that's an option. Like you can hand out that responsibility to me as a module, and so okay, two ways to see it. If this becomes an issue, then it could be logged as an issue on the project repository on Drupal.org, and if a lot of people are interested into that, then I can try to like spend some time adding the lines of code to figure a strategy to generate logic to handle that based on the folder that you include. However, that does pose a problem, and the problem is that we need to change some of the conventions here. Why? Because I would need to add some additional information that is not currently available to the single directory components, which is the namespace as part of the YAML file, uh, which again deviates from the standard convention, which is the fully annotated example that we have on Drupal.org. Instead of that, if we namespace the component, like in this case, Alemadley card, Monet card, then that way we avoid having this problem because technically no namespaces should collide in that way. Like, unless someone decides to call it my awesome slider and then someone wants to call it my awesome slider but on Git Bitbucket or something like that, it's complicated. But then again, like I could have so this is a problem because we don't have like a shared repository. Like with Drupal modules, that's not a problem because like creating a project on Drupal has a machine name and then the machine name cannot be reused. Because we're doing shareable components, that's not the case. But maybe in the future that becomes something that can be added, and then you are not allowed to reuse components. And so whoever picks card first, that's it. Some other people have to use like my awesome card, my card version 3.0, something like that. Yeah, I it does take the responsibility away, but then again, is it worth the effort? Because again, it makes sense, but then you so here's the problem. For this to work, I needed to add this, and this is something that belongs to my module only. Like that's not part of the Drupal standard. So I will have to tell people, okay, if you're using this, you have to make this change. Now, you could argue that doing the component installers standard is not the Drupal way, but that's part of what can be done with Composer. So not exactly Drupal, but more towards Composer. So that's fine in a way. Uh, I mean, this prompts from for a lot of discussion. But I would say that, like, if I see people logging that issue and a lot of people like interested in that, I am willing to spend some time trying to come up with a solution. But then again, I also urge you that if you think this makes sense, now that you know what's going on, if you have PHP coding experience, you can also like take that responsibility and send a merge request that I can take a look at and we can evaluate. I would love to see that, to be honest. Okay, so having said that, I think that for the time being, I'm going to gear more towards having it as part of the component name, namespace your components, and then that way it's not going to be a problem if you have someone else's card along with your card. So don't use simplistic names as card. Do it like I don't know, USWDS card, and then that's the United States Web Design System card or the Spectrum card. That could work that way, and it's easier. Thanks, Monet, for the recommendation. It makes sense to me for the time being, and that way you can start using this module right away. Any other comments or questions? No, I completely agree with you, Monet. And I am hoping that I'm pronouncing your name correct. Okay, so I don't have anything else to showcase right now. This thing is out there. You can take a look at it, play around with it, see if you can break it. Monet. Okay. Thank you, Monet. So yeah, this thing is out there. You can play around with it. You can share it. I would love to see your single directory components being shared and available in GitHub or some other place, and then for you to like do some like make some noise, have people like play around with it, Maybe, and of course this also requires the discussion from the core maintainers for the SDC part. I hope that by seeing this video, it feels like something that makes sense for them. Um, and maybe this module in the future gets deprecated because it's something that could be included as part of core. If that's the case, then that would be great. If not, then the module is going to be available. So either way, there's a way around that. Uh, and yeah, again, if you start building your SDCs, feel free to use the SDC style guide. Any feedback is more than welcomed. A few things of what I plan to do with it besides bug fixing, because I got a few reports of things that are failing, is make things a little bit nicer. One thing about this is that you can change how the layout of the bar works, and then you also have these two tests for responsiveness. So you can always see uh, how the component behaves on different resolutions, and then you have the accessibility options for this to verify that it's working for you. And thank you guys for watching, because no one spends. I think it's barely common for some. It's not common at all for people to take a look at a Drupal stream, I think. And it's been a while since there have been any activity here in Costa Rica. So I mean, it's just great to have some interaction in these sessions. And then again, I'm in the Slack channel. If you have any questions later on, feel free to ping on the components channel. There's a lot of activity there. And yeah, please share your SDCs once you have them. I'll be more than happy to take a look at what people have built around this. That is going to be everything for today. If you are not part of it but would be interested in getting notified of any other activities that I might do in the future, you can take a look at the Drupal Costa Rica meetup page. That's one of the first locations that I usually use to post any upcoming events. I also have a Twitch channel, so you can subscribe to this YouTube channel or you can subscribe to Twitch. Small difference. On the Twitch channel, I tend to do Spanglish sessions. So they might feel a little bit off if you don't speak both languages. But I get that, or I think that overall it kind of makes sense if you follow along what I'm doing on the screen. And then feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. That's the other place where I usually post stuff. So you can always take a look here and see if I post any information regarding any upcoming events. I mean, hopefully you find these sessions annoying, because I know that for some people they might struggle with having to switch between Spanish and English. And then the other thing is, I have this thing over here in Substack, which is basically just some random thoughts in a way, which are written in Spanglish. So I do this for the lols, to be honest, because I find it funny to just write in Spanish and English at the same time. Uh, and it's actually one of the things that I was doing in DrupalCon Atlanta earlier this year. There were some group of developers that spoke both Spanish and English, so I was just switching between the two, and that was pretty funny, to be honest, pretty interesting. But yeah, so you have different ways to follow me. I'll be doing more sessions. Monet mentioned something interesting before, and that is regarding visual regression testing. One thing that you could do eventually with the SDC Style Guide module is that, because every single component demo has its own URL, you could have a visual regression automated testing, that whenever you are ready to do a production release, you can pass this through that regression testing, and then it can go through all the components and ensure that none of those have broken from the code on the latest release. So again, many advantages to the SDC Styleguide, and I haven't had enough time to like add some love to it, to give some love to it, but that's in the plan. It's interesting to know that your husband is Latino. From where, if it can be known. Um, and yeah, so feel free to use it. Again, you can do many things with it. And if you have any particular ideas, just let me know. In a way, I'm trying to eventually like just steal whatever Storybook does. I The reason why I built this was because originally when I tried to do Storybook with Drupal, it just didn't work out for me. Like it had too many issues. I tried on Windows and in the Linux virtual machine, and I got error after error after error. Like whatever was in the documentation 2 years ago just didn't make it for me. So that's why I decided to build this style guide, because it's native to Drupal and you don't need anything else. Okay, so yeah, thank you again, guys, for your time. I hope that this session has been of help to you and for your future projects. And let's make some noise. Let's see if this eventually can be somehow merged into core, or let's continue working as a separate workflow that can help projects in the future. Have a great day and hope to communicate with you over Slack. Bye, guys.
Digo que no pueda brillar. Debugging like Sherlock, my skills never drop. Brush in my pocket, command line pop. From dev to prod, the pipeline flows. Drupal mastery, everybody knows. Yeah, propel dev, I'm the king of the stack. Multilingual site, yo los pongo en el map. From the back end depths to the UI show, I'm the architect, baby. Watch it grow.